OnePlus has a new flagship for 2022. The OnePlus 10 Pro has a new design and chipset, but also a lot of similarities with last year's 9 Pro. So, is it worth considering this year? I'm Enrique for GSM Arena, and this is our review of the OnePlus 10 Pro. With the OnePlus 10 Pro, it feels like the brand has made an effort to stand out among similar offerings from its other sister brands, at least visually. The phone has a less generic design than the 9 Pros, and the square camera bump is a bold choice that blends nicely into the frame of the phone. The back of the 10 Pro is made of Gorilla Glass 5, and the frame is aluminum with a matte black finish. What you're looking at here is the volcanic black option, but an emerald forest option is also available. The fingerprint scanner was placed further up the display this time, making it easier to reach with one hand. Overall, the phone feels very nice to hold. The matte texture does a really nice job of repelling fingerprints, but sadly it provides limited grip and the phone is rather slippery. The OnePlus 10 Pro isn't officially IP rated, except for the T-Mobile variant in the US, which has IP68 water resistance. The 10 Pro has the same display we saw on the OnePlus 9 Pro. It's a 6.7-inch AMOLED panel with QHD+ resolution and second-generation LTPO technology, with a dynamic 120Hz refresh rate. The protection, however, has been updated to Gorilla Glass Victus. On the OnePlus 10 Pro, the panel has undergone dual color calibration, meaning that OnePlus tuned the color profiles at 100 and 500 nits of brightness, so that we can see more accurate colors across more levels of brightness. We found the display on this phone to be very color accurate, making it ideal for consuming or even creating content. Otherwise, the screen is rated for up to 1300 nits of brightness, with great visibility outdoors. The interface here is OxygenOS 12.1 running over Android 12. But this is not the OxygenOS we've come to know over the years. Since OnePlus merged its codebase with Oppo, this UI is very much Color Gen OS, Oxycolor OS. It's not OxygenOS. Although the look isn't as clean as before, you'll still find most of the features that OnePlus had on its recent phones, like Zen Mode, OnePlus Shelf, and the always-on display canvas feature. Key OnePlus apps are here too, like the File Manager and Stock Gallery app, although they have been redesigned. You can get 128 or 256 gigabytes of non-expandable storage in Europe and India, but in North America you can only get the 128 gigabyte version at launch. OnePlus plans to bring a 256 gigabyte variant later this year. On the 10 Pro, you'll find the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 paired with OnePlus's new 3D passive cooling system. We've seen this chip run pretty hot on other phones, but the 10 Pro's got excellent thermal management with minimal throttling in our testing. This makes the 10 Pro a great choice for gamers, but keep in mind that most games will be limited to 60Hz refresh rate, failing to take advantage of the chipset's raw performance. The OnePlus 10 Pro comes with a larger 5000 mAh battery compared to its predecessor, and it scored 107 hours overall endurance in our test. In North America, you'll get the 65-watt SuperVOOC charger included in the box. With it, we were able to charge the phone from 0 to 100% in 32 minutes. Everywhere else, the 10 Pro comes with an 80-watt charger, but that one makes hardly a difference in overall charging times. The OnePlus 10 Pro does feature dual stereo speakers. They're good enough for watching YouTube videos or listening to podcasts, but music can sound tinny at higher volumes. Now onto the cameras. The 10 Pro has the second-gen Hasselblad camera in the lineup, and its hardware is identical to that of the first one on the 9 Pro. It consists of a 48-megapixel main camera with OIS, an 8-megapixel telephoto camera with 3.3 times optical zoom, and a new 50-megapixel ultra-wide camera with a 150-degree field of view. Unfortunately, this ultra-wide camera has no autofocus. The main camera outputs 12 megapixel photos by default. In daylight, this camera produces great shots with good amounts of detail. There is some noticeable sharpening throughout all the shots, but nothing too aggressive. Color rendering has been improved, though not perfectly accurate. Colors come out vivid and are pleasing to look at. HDR is a bit more conservative, so images have a more natural look. Portraits are shot primarily with the main camera, with an available digital zoom mode. The blur effect is convincing, handling hair and edges fairly well, but glasses can still trip it. Telephoto shots maintain the same colors and resolved detail, but with more pleasing contrast. The shots also have noticeably less sharpening applied than those from the main camera. Shots from the ultra-wide camera might only lose a little detail compared to the main one, but colors look very similar. However, it has lost the autofocus capabilities and the macro photography that came on the 9 Pro's ultra-wide camera, which is disappointing. You can shoot in a 150-degree ultra-wide mode, which unlocks the camera's full field of view. It's hard to ignore the lens distortion of the edges, but it can make for some interesting shots depending on the subject. Then there's the fisheye mode, which produces even more dramatic shots. In low light, the main camera takes excellent photos, even without enabling the night mode. This large main sensor captures low light scenes well with plenty of detail and without over-sharpening images, while retaining pleasing colors. Using night mode mostly makes a difference in situations with extremely low light or whenever there are light sources in the photo. Night mode retains highlights very well and exposure is more balanced. The telephoto camera did very well with night mode. Exposures were well balanced and colors pleasant. The ultra-wide camera struggled a bit at night. Photos look very soft even with the night mode turned on. Noise, however, is very well suppressed. The 10 Pro has a new 32 megapixel selfie camera with f2.2 aperture. Resulting photos have great details and very well handled dynamic range in backlit scenes. Colors are pleasant and not too saturated. There isn't any autofocus here though, and videos are limited to 1080p. 8K video doesn't appear to be true 8K though. It looks more like 4K video that's been upscaled and sharpened to mimic 8K. The best mode to shoot with is 4K, and it's available on the main camera in 30, 60, and 120 frames per second. Footage looks clean and crisp with great levels of detail. Color and dynamic range performance is similar to still images. 4K video from the ultra-wide camera looks decent with reasonable detail levels, good color, and dynamic range. The telephoto camera maxes out at 1080p 30 frames per second, which looks decent enough. The OnePlus 10 Pro brings an updated look with a smudge-free finish, higher battery capacity, bright and accurate AMOLED screen, a flagship-grade chipset with 5G support, and capable cameras. Battery life is great and charging speeds are blazing fast, and thermal management is top-notch, but there are a couple of things that left us on a sour note. The major one is Oxygen OS, which has lost much of its character in its merger with ColorOS. It's inconsistent too, and it's bound to disappoint longtime OnePlus fans who remember the UI differently. Meanwhile, the cameras perform well and low-light performance is great, but the app is missing polish. Not only that, but the ultra-wide camera has lost its autofocus compared to the 9 Pro. We would have preferred they kept the macro and autofocus capabilities on the ultra-wide instead of the fisheye camera. At $900, the 10 Pro has the punch and performance that OnePlus has been known for, but there are a lot of great options to consider at this price point, and even if you pay just a little bit more, you can find something that's decidedly more polished and well-rounded. Thank you for watching. I've been Enrique, and I'll see you guys on the next one.